When we hear the word ego, we tend to associate it in a negative light or give it a negative connotation. But in essence, an ego can be a healthy thing. It's a part of us, it's part of the self, it's what helps us navigate through the world. So, you know, a lot of times when we're talking about ego, people are referring to more of an unhealthy version of ego, a toxic version of ego. And we see this play out often, right? But I want to do this video because I want to differentiate the difference between a healthy ego and an unhealthy ego. So what brings people into a toxic ego? What inflates it to the point where it becomes something that kind of hijacks or manipulates our life? Where does this come from? Well, you know, when we're born connected. We have all these dimensions of the self, and we're connected to the heart. We have logic and reasoning as we get older. But as we move throughout life, this self-image, this protective mechanism, which the ego helps protect us, instinct, it's about reaction, right? But it attaches to things, it clings to things, it doesn't like change. And it becomes this version of ego that now impedes our ability to evolve or grow as a spiritual person or human being, you could say. So I want to read you just a definition that I think is a good, gives you a good meaning of what ego actually is. And this is from the book Deepening Perspectives by Lonnie Jarrett. Some really good insights here. So he says, one way to think of ego is as a filter that creates the illusion of a separate self whose existence is defined by its history. Okay? It's as though we are driving through life and have come to identify with the accretions of mud, dust, and bugs on the car's windshield. We forget that we are the one perfectly clear consciousness perceiving these goings on out in the wheel, if I said that right, and not the experience of the events themselves. Okay, so the ego creates an illusion of this person separate from other. And it's not a bad thing. It helps us navigate throughout the world, like I said. So you can think of ego like a video game, a character in a video game. And you're this little dude in this 8-bit, 16-bit Nintendo game running around with your sword, trying to protect yourself. You're cutting down and chopping at all your enemies because you're defensive and you're trying to get to something, okay, to achieve, to win in your life, to achieve that. So that could be an example of kind of like erring on the side of an unhealthy ego is if you only recognize yourself as that little dude in that 8-bit Nintendo game who's just chopping everybody down, everybody's in my way, and everybody's out to get me, the world is out to get me, and I need to win and get to the other side to get to whatever, gold or whatever on the other side, and that's the only way I'm going to be happy. That's the only way that I know. It has a limited perception. But if you have a more healthy ego, you realize that the ego is not you. It's a part of you. It's a dimension of you, okay, of your more connected or your higher self. And the ego can be more of a disconnect, okay, because it is based on instinct. It's based on being reactive. It's based on protecting ourselves and helping us navigate. So if you're recognizing yourself as also the one playing the game, not just the little dude character in the game, in the limited 8-bit Nintendo world that you're in, you realize that you're more connected. You have a more integrated, self-actualized sense of everything, that, you know, little dude is only a piece of you and not all of you. The ego is more of a reactive mind. It can attach, it can cling to things. It doesn't necessarily like change because, again, it wants to protect us. It can become territorial. And you might ask, okay, first of all, how does the ego become inflated or become this toxic version of itself? Where's the difference between a healthy ego that helps us navigate things, that gives us a sense of purpose, a sense of self-confidence in our own lives. Healthy ego helps us recognize not only our own strengths and confidence, but also respect others and other differences. But if it errs on the side of being more toxic or unhealthy, then it looks at others as the enemy instead. So this is the big difference, okay? Instead of looking at others as their own sense of self, the unhealthy ego looks at others as the enemy. And maybe it wants to destroy its enemy because it feels, again, territorial, it's protecting itself, it's very reactive instead of being connected. When we're maybe teenagers or something, as we're growing up, okay, we form this, ego is formed earlier in life, and then later in life we're trying to kind of let go of it or understand it more. But if we fail to understand it, what happens? Think of yourself as a teenager, insecure teen, and you start putting on labels and wearing a mask to identify with certain things, to make yourself more acceptable to other people, to feel worthy, to feel loved, right? It gives you a sense of purpose, but not in a connected way, more from an ego way. If we don't understand that down the line, we keep wearing the mask, we never understand our shadows, we keep pushing them down, and they start projecting out until it becomes dangerous, where we're projecting out and berating other people's expression of ego. One of the things about a healthy ego is when you have a healthy ego, you can walk your own path and respect others to do the same, okay? When it becomes more on the toxic side, you're all about power, control, dominance, being superior, territorial. You don't really have empathy for others. It's overly competitive. People like this, I'm sure. And those are the main differences. So I do a lot of videos on the 5 element types, personality types, and they're basically how each element type is different. They're kind of an example of the different facets of different expressions of egos in people. So there's all strengths, right, to all those elements. There's strengths to each of us. So if we use our ego in a healthy manner and we understand it and we use it to help us, we integrate the ego into all of us, the whole. We don't just play this character from this limited point of view that everybody's out to get you, everything is a threat to your safety, other is scary, change is scary, all that kind of stuff, all these survival instincts. So a self-actualized ego sees itself as one with everything around it. It doesn't inflate its importance. A healthy ego is the foundation to self-evolution, or your more spiritual or your more connected self. Okay. Whereas when an ego is more on the toxic side and you let it just take over, you don't see yourself as one with others. You see yourself as completely separate. You see yourself as everybody else is a threat. Okay. And sometimes, as you're going through life or evolution in your life, you may heard of killing the ego, but viewing the ego as the enemy is not necessarily a healthy thing, because you're just kind of repressing it. You're never going to kill the ego completely. You're going to just stuff it down, repress it, and live your life projecting out onto others, and maybe you don't even realize it, okay? Where your shadows are coming out and you don't realize it. So that's something to really be aware of, is this notion of good, bad, like ego is bad or other is bad, and this very black and white thinking, okay? Me good, you bad, okay? Caveman era type of logic or reasoning. So anyway, hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week for you on all kinds of topics. Truly appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.